Well, good evening, everyone. For those who I didn't meet today, I'm Edsel Ford. There's a microphone I'm supposed to... You can all hear me, can't you? So I probably, if you don't know me, I probably ought to tell you who I am. My father was Henry Ford II. My grandfather was Edsel Ford, and my great-grandfather was Henry Ford I. I have a lot of gasoline flowing through my veins, and I've been with Ford Motor Company since 1974. Not as long as Mose has, because actually I celebrated Mose's 50th anniversary with Ford, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But Dave Bannister asked if Mose and I might just sit here for a minute and tell you about Le Mans 1966, because then I'm going to go home and you're going to see a lot of other important people. Maybe I'll start and I'll introduce, well, you know who I am, so I'll let Mose Nowland introduce himself to you.
Yeah. Good evening, folks. My name is Mose Nowland, and I've been around Ford for a little while and enjoyed some very nice programs, all of it motorsport, and I still got the blood today. I follow you people around your events and so on. Enter your ownership of your cars. I don't have one. I have a 25 Model T. That's as fast as I can go. Anyway, it's just been a great experience here at Ford Motor Company. I've spent 35 years in motorsport and a lot of other interesting programs, one-of-a-kind prototype build programs. So it's just been great. And I've got fellas seem to think I lived a charmed life, and I did. I really did.
So we'll talk a little about Le Mans in just a minute, but I do want to say a couple of things, a couple of introductory comments. The first thing is thank you for helping Dave Bannister celebrate the Ford GT's 10th anniversary and bringing the new I know some of you have come from a long way, some of you from Idaho, some of you from the West Coast, and I know at least one gentleman I met today said he drove his Ford GT, I think from either Portland or Seattle, and I thought, Seattle, so that's a really long way to come to an event. So thank you for doing that. And welcome to the Henry Ford Museum at Greenfield Village. I don't know how often you've been here or how often you come here, but I know you're all very busy, and I guess, Dave, the program ends tomorrow. But I hope you stay an extra day and have a chance, if you haven't been here, to walk through this museum. It is an absolutely fantastic museum with so many beautiful things, so many interesting things to look at. I think you could spend literally a whole day here looking at all sorts of things. If you do stay, please pay special attention to a display that Mose and I feel a relation to, and that's Racing in America. And we started this concept about 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe it's been longer than that. Maybe it's been eight or 9 years ago. But Racing in America's concept was to talk about all of the interesting and unique things that have happened to race cars here in the United States. Not so much about the race cars themselves, but a lot about the technology that's happening. Things like Hans devices and roof flaps that Jack Roush invented and things like that. So we've just started. We were told that it's going to cost us about $15 million to actually complete the exhibit. We're about a third of the way through. I think we've raised $6 or $7 million, but go have a look, and there's lots of fun cars. There's Bill Elliott's car that he won Atlanta with, and Trevor Bain's car that Trevor won Daytona with 4 or 5 years ago. I hate to say I was there, but I don't remember how long ago it was. But his car's there, and there's a bunch of other really kind of interesting sweepstakes, which I believe is the single car that actually, when my great-grandfather Henry Ford won the race in October 1901, I believe that was his victory in Grosse Pointe in sweepstakes that actually helped found the Ford Motor Company. So that car's there. So please stay an extra day. I don't know about hotels or anything else, but we've also got a whole new Rouge plant experience that you can go through that just was completely redone. I know I sound like a salesman, but I'm a trustee of the board here, and this is a wonderful museum, and it's really exciting, and it has so many wonderful things in it that if you have extra time, please stay. So I promised Dave we would be short and sweet and maybe take a question or two, but many, many years ago, about 51 years ago, my father came to me and he said, you know what, Edsel, I'm going to go to Le Mans and watch a car race. Would you like to come with me? And my father, just I'm sure like many of you here tonight, was my hero. And anytime I could hang around with my father, it was going to be an important event. So my father said to me, we're going to go to Le Mans, we're going to watch a car race, and there's going to be lots of Ford cars there. And I went. And of course I was only 18 years old, so my recollection is not as clear as it should be. But having spent a lot of time with Mose and a lot of time with Carol Shelby telling me these absolutely incredible stories about what Ford Motor Company went through to take 6 cars to Le Mans that year in 1966, and the effort that went through it was pretty amazing. So they asked if I'd be here, but I'm going to let Mose tell you most of the story because he was there and he has a much clearer recollection. So I'll let you go on.
I'm not sure of my hard drive how much is left, but anyway, it was certainly the high point of my life, and I was certainly fortunate to be chosen to help develop the engine and assemble, and then follow the cars to the track and tune them, you know, set the timing, valve flashback, and so on. We made our dry runs at the Daytona 24-hour and 12-hour events, and it was probably the great pleasure came when we saw the smile on your father's voice on Sunday afternoon anyway. But it was just fulfilling, and I never thought at the time that the legend would live on and on and on, and even generate a car that you folks are enjoying, you know, and there's probably more to come, I'm sure of that. So it just, I'm just grateful for it, and it takes a while to get the stories going, but about a 6-pack, really, so anyway. That's been part of my career. The second high point was the Indianapolis program with Jimmy Clark and Colin Chapman, assembled the first cameras, the quad cams, you know, and then followed them around on test programs and so on. So as you can see, I had worked at a lot of my friends' envy before. Envy did want to be part of it, but somehow I hit the spot, and I really appreciate it. And Ford has been very good to me. And yes, we did see you at Le Mans.
Tell us a Carol Shelby story.
Well, Carol Shelby, I went out to his shop a few times. Carol was very grateful, a terrific engineer, and he would come by just to check to make sure that we had all the materials and help that we needed to do our part. We were making some last minute adjustments on his Mark IIs and Mark IVs before they went to the airport to get shipped over. But his number one man is a hero of mine also, and that was Phil Remington. And I just can't say enough about his operation, and it was nice of Carol. He just let you do your thing, and it was nice to feel that you were being entrusted to touch those machines, work on those machines when his reputation hung on them, you know, and so on. So I've had just a terrific time. Right up to 2012 when I walked away from the company, and anyway, we stay very close to what's happening. You know, we've got a network that just won't quit. So anyway, that's part of.
Mose, real quick, I wanted to ask you because I'm a huge fan of big engines and big horsepower, and I know that when the race program started with the GT40, you had the small blocks, I think, originally, and eventually you brought in the 427 NASCAR engine, and that's the one that was being utilized when it won the race.
That's true. The small block, there was two other gentlemen that really was the head honchos on the small block. Mr. Don Sullivan, who was an employee under your grandfather, but and Hank Lennox. But I was there to do some assembling, and the little engine with Ken Miles at Le Mans just worked extra hard, and sometimes just couldn't cut the mustard. So it was obvious that we needed a little more durability, and of course that's when we went to the 427 with dry sump on it, just a single 4-barrel. And actually, we started with a NASCAR engine, but the NASCAR we found out was a little bit more horsepower and torque that we really needed to do Le Mans. You understand that when we went to Le Mans testing, Ken Miles had a recorder on the car, and we recorded throttle angle, vacuum, shift points, and brake points and stuff like that. And the folks looked at the 427 and says, yeah, that's a lot of engine for that car. Why don't we detune it and buy ourselves durability? And that's exactly what we did. We took the horsepower from about 502, 507 at that time and brought it down to 385, 390. No two engines ever developed the same. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 horsepower. But anyway, it was a very good move because that thing would grind along with the Foyt, Gurney, and the McLarens and Donahues and all that, and it was solid. It was solid. There was other things that happened to the cars, and like the body flying off and things like that. But the engine was solid. We didn't have a failure there at all. So it's.
Any favorite stories about the drivers?
Well, yeah, but I can't tell you. Now, two of the most colorful drivers there, of course, covered by a trail of press all the time, was Gurney and Foyt. And the one driver was having a little trouble getting around the track, and the other driver was smooth and an expert. So the car was being faulted for a lot of things. So the smooth driver jumped into it, and took another second off, a half second off the track time, and brought it back in, and then the other driver, he wanted to try it again, and he started doing better. So it just, the little things that went on like that, and it's, you can expect those things, really. But both of them turned out doing a terrific job, and your father was very pleased with it, I'll tell you.
It was a happy man riding home in the airplane.
Oh, I'll bet. It was said that in the motorsport magazines and all the press, when it was learned we were going to Le Mans, that Mr. Ford wanted to really win this race. And he had motives that I wasn't even aware of at the time. To me, it was, we're going to a race. But anyway, to tell you how much he wanted to win the race was that I witnessed a 3x5 car coming down to us grunts, more or less, a 3x5 car, and on it says, "You will win." And I'm sure you've heard that story before, but anyway, the part that you didn't hear was my manager looked at me and he says, "There's your performance review." So anyway, so it's been exciting, and the beat goes on, and I'm just grateful for that. And I enjoy seeing the products that you folks are enjoying kind of come out of that era and out of that style, and there's probably more coming. So anyway, that's.
So, Dave, have you briefed all these people about... Do they know about the plans for next year? Okay, so I'm probably going to tell you things I shouldn't because Dave is going to be really mad at me now. But next June, we're going to go over and some of us are going to help celebrate the 50th anniversary of the GT40 victory at Le Mans. So I will tell you, I'm not a travel agent, but if you want to go, you better start worrying about it now. And make sure you tell Dave that you're going to go, because Dave may end up being a travel agent now that I've said that. But just a quick update on some things I'm hoping we're going to be able to make happen at Le Mans in June. Is I have been in very close relationship with Chris Amon, who was actually the co-driver with Bruce McLaren, who actually won the race in 1966. And Chris lives in a city in New Zealand that I've actually been to. So he was just, when I first started to email him, he said, "Oh, you can't have been here." And I said, "Oh yeah," I mentioned a couple of restaurants and so. But I'm hoping, he's not well, but I'm hoping that he'll be able to be there. We've talked to Gurney, I think he'll be there. We might have to get some help with AJ, but hopefully he'll be there. Mose will be there, I will be there. So we're trying to get Jack Passano, who is 92 years old, who was the first head of the Ford racing program, who was really the father, the head guy for the Le Mans project back then. We're looking to get Rob Kaufman's he owns the winning car. We believe it's the winning car, the Amon McLaren car. It's being reconstructed now, and Rob tells me he thinks it's going to be ready for Le Mans. We have the Gurney Foyt car here in the museum. We'll hope to take that with us. The number 3 car is owned by a Swiss man in Switzerland. He says he'll bring the car. The number 2 car is somewhere, and I just can't remember where it is. It's not coming to me. But I think it's available. So I think we're going to, so if you've got nothing to do in June, and you want to help us celebrate, and I feel like I'm part of you because I own a Ford GT as well, and so does my son Henry, who's here tonight. So we're all excited about this. This is going to be a wonderful a recreation and a wonderful celebration of the 1, 2, 3 victory. And then I want to just introduce Raj Nair, who's here tonight, and I don't know whether you know who Raj Nair is, but Raj is the group vice president. Executive Vice President.
Not yet.
Not yet. He's head of car and product development for Ford Motor Company around the world. So I mean, he's the top car and truck guy that we have. And it was Raj and 2 other people that put the skunk works together to convince this monolithic system called Ford Motor Company to do the Ford GT and the new Ford GT. And so we should all, so before you leave tonight, make sure you thank Raj, because he really has taken this whole process the next step forward. I didn't think we'd see anything after our cars, but you've seen the photographs. I'm sure many of you have actually seen the car in the flesh. It is absolutely sensational. So we're all pretty excited about that. But it is really a way to help us celebrate the 1, 2, 3 victory, the GT40 victories that we've had at Le Mans over the years. So we're all pretty excited about it, and I'm going to be there, and my son Henry will be there, and hopefully the rest of my family. So if you've nothing to do, call Dave.
Hey, thanks a lot, Edsel and Mose, for coming in here and giving us some perspective on what started this whole thing going. It's very important, the whole heritage of the vehicle. So we look forward to next year.
Good.
50th celebration to remember, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.